Hey everybody, Jamin here. I have just a couple thoughts I wanted to go over with you and some story time, and I want to talk a little bit about permaculture design for rural and residential communities because that's what my mind is right now. That's what I'm kind of mulling over. I drive around a lot and I see wasted spaces, just grass lawns, ditches, a lot of eroding canals, and I see concrete oceans in different cities and hot landscapes where there could be growing shade and trees and away from the plants and outside of the plants. Even the way that we build our structures is just sticks and twigs, and from a construction perspective it's fragile and it's expensive to get into really heavy duty design of a structure, and we call these places home. But through permaculture, we then look at all these structures and we say, well, we can re-engineer the way that we do that, but that requires us to now build all new, brand new homes. And so I want to go on a little bit of a tangent with you because I'm on my way up to northern Missouri again. Gonna be stopping in at the hub, and then I've got some consultations today. And in my running around, it's inevitable. I'm gonna see a lot of different properties where my mind is drawn to notice the flaws or the wasted resource capture opportunities or the labor intensive methods that they're using to operate at those levels that home is on at this time, right? A lot of people are always in projects and development, right? And it's not so much running around and judging everything. So don't go to that mindset. Stay in abundance and positivity and love and care for everybody. Recognize everybody's at their own level. There is no real comparison here. What we can do is we can look at things objectively and we can say, could this improve? And the answer is more than often not. Yes, it can. It absolutely can. And so when we look at things in that lens, it helps us look at the world around us in a much greater context. And that's what permaculture is so beautiful for, is that the lens in which we view the world through is that of abundance and that of ability. We can design structures to meet the human need and complement the environment simultaneously. We can create energy independence that then leverages the ability of the American dream and our family freedoms to actually become self-sufficient on our own homes. So we don't need to depend on the municipal power supply, the drainage and gray water traps of all of the runoff across our neighborhood going to the city plant, where they then treat it with chemicals and bill us to send it back to us. All these systems that are operating modern society today are just not sustainable. And not only are they not sustainable, we're going into a pattern right now all around the world where those systems that are not sustainable are finally reaching the point where the sustainability cripples and families can't afford things, infrastructure is falling apart, old technology is aging. There's a lot of instability in the design of things that is just not able to keep up anymore with the growth of society. And I'm in the mindset of abundance. I like to believe that there's more than enough to go around. I don't toy with scarcity. Energy cannot be destroyed, and all things are energy. That means that when something is not here in this moment, let's say water, for example, in the midst of a drought, it doesn't mean that there is no more water. It means that it has been transmuted into another form. It is existing in some other capacity or has been displaced. It can come back again. And so that abundance didn't go away. It's just elsewhere temporarily. And so with that mindset, looking at the world around us and seeing lack is wrong. Seeing displacement, though, can become a much more objective way to look at the world when you see what could be considered lack. There is a lot of displacement in the world. There is things in the wrong places. And there's actually a song that just comes to my mind that I really love. I don't remember who wrote it. I think it's the Formidable Vegetable. Great permaculture artist. And he says, there's no such thing as waste, only stuff in the wrong place. It's a great lyric. You got to look that up. My boys love that too. But all right, so on this tangent here, so let's talk about what are the solutions. What are the solutions? If you and your home are sitting in the conditions right here, right now, where you're working a 9-to-5 job, or maybe you're retired, or maybe you're running a business, or if you're anything like me, you're kind of all of the above in different capacities and different hats, and you have a lot of different hats that you wear, and you're jumping around a lot, and maybe time management and resource allocation are the highest priorities for you. Maybe the grand vision of why you do what you do is the backbone of everything that you have going on. If you're anything like me, that's kind of the world that you're probably living in, and you probably look at the world like I've described to this point already. So those people, that's who I want to talk to. I want to talk to the people living in all the different walks of life who have the mindset of recognizing that things could be better. So if that's you, stick around for a minute. I have a solution, or a couple solutions and ideas we can discuss. If you're the kind of person who is really trapped in negativity and the world has just beat you down and you need some Rocky Balboa speeches to get you up again, I encourage you to maybe listen a little uniquely, a little bit differently, for the specific things that resonate with you in the paradigm shift here, because you have the opportunity to exist in one of three ways. The degenerative trajectory of society, which is where we basically just eat, drink, and be merry, and nobody really has a thought or a care for their brother or the world around them, and they just do what they want to do, and that's that, and we're all going to die, and that's it. We're gone when we're dead, and there's that. Then there's the sustainability paradigm, which is where we're looking at the world around us as lack. It's rooted in the idea of lack. Sustainable systems are just that. They're plateaus. All we can do is sustain it. But we can create regenerative systems. We can get a higher upward trajectory, which is where the systems that we design are not only sustainable, but they're beyond sustainability to where they regenerate themselves or produce a surplus. They're no longer net zero, they're net positive. This is where nature exists. This is how the forests exist. This is how God designed the ecosystems of the planet. All the natural laws and rules of the universe operate at that level. And so we have the chance, through the examples that God gave us all around the planet, to observe that in all kinds of different facets and then apply that. So if you're stuck down here, going downward in your trajectory of negativity and maybe a lot of self-destruction going on in your world, I encourage you and try to baby step your way up, because there's more, my friend. I was there before. I know what it's like to be in that dark hole, and there's more. There's a lot more. All right, so let's get into a few cool things here. I was watching a video recently talking about community design, and you'll hear us talk about food forests in every yard. We talk about a hive trap in every tree. We talk about a mentor in every home. We talk about rain catch in every gutter. We want to see people own the source of their food, water, shelter, and surplus, and their energy efficient surplus, energy efficient shelters, not just homes. Like I don't want you to just buy your house. I want you to reimagine what that house looks like. So let's start there. Okay, your home. Inside your house, you have a waste cycle. Everybody uses the toilet. Everybody uses the drain and the sink. Everybody eats something at the table and then throws it in the trash. So those, right off the bat, that's 3 waste points. Between the black water coming out of the sewage, the gray water coming out of the sink, and the waste products coming into the trash. All 3 of those are resources that can be redesigned into the exterior landscape. So let's talk about some solutions really fast. So number 1, black water can, or I should say, sewage, for example, if managed properly and separated traditionally, I guess, in this context, between the solids and the liquids, you can actually produce biofuels, and you can use gaseous materials to or use these substances to produce gaseous materials that you can then utilize again as composts or as actual ignition fuel. One of the ways that's really, really cool about compost systems for black water is that while it sounds a little bit gross, it can actually become a fertilizer. That's the most common use in permaculture for sewage, for black water. And for anything coming out of your toilet or your compost toilet or anything like that, all of those things can be composted into human manure or into another type of fertilizer. I don't get very far into that when by consultancies and with the systems I like to talk about, because there's a lot of gray area in that conversation, and frankly, people are gross. I'll just put it out there. People are gross. It's gross. We don't want to talk about feces and what's going in and out of your toilet, right? And our diets are nasty in America, and so everything that we're doing already that's toxic is on the other end of that discussion. And that's when you understand it like I do, all the things that are going on in that cycle, it's nasty. And so I don't get into that conversation. So I'll just end it there and just let you know that there is options, and there are tons and tons of good resources that you can explore to dive into that if you want to close that waste loop, which I highly recommend you do, on your own property and on your homestead. One of the best ones you'll find is the Human Manure Handbook. That's a really good option to start learning about some options. So then let's go to the gray water. So gray water, it doesn't have any sewage in it. It's the water that comes out of your toilet, or I'm sorry, your showers, your sinks, your kitchen bathroom, your kitchenette, kitchen sink, all those things that are maybe food scraps. Maybe they got a little bit of soap or something in them, but for the most part, they're just bacteria rich. They're not really totally toxic. Okay, totally toxic stuff like sewage or really harsh chemicals that becomes black water. All right, now, so the gray water is cool. Okay, so when we plumb gray water out of the house, you can plumb that into piping rather than into your sewage tanks. If your gray water is going into your black tank, you are wasting it. The gray water is capable of going directly into filtration systems that are organic based, like reed beds. Reed beds will help purify the water, separate the solids and the liquids, refertilize and mineralize and cleanse that water, and then on the outside of just a 3-stage reed bed, you can put it directly into your garden. There are also several larger scale options if you're out in the county where it can go directly to your garden, and you can have a bioswale or even a biopore hole that can operate as a sink for all that material, where the solids and liquids again will separate, and I'm talking like food chunks, right, when I say solids, and then the liquids can rise and permeate out over a growable version of what I guess you could visualize as a rain garden, right? A biopore hole is a little bit different in the fact that it's just a deep hole with organic matter and mass. And then a bioswale would be a little bit different as well in the fact that it's designed to capture, slow, and spread the water across an area, and can be incorporating these gray water solutions in its design. Or whereas a rain garden that you can apply the same exact aspects to would be incorporating all of the groundwater flow from when it rains, or you have an excess of water flow across the property, and integrating that gray water into that system as well, so that it's spreading and thinning those materials that are in the gray water out with an influx of water from the natural rain runoff. So there's all kinds of cool ways to do it. So without getting too far into that gray water is now a watering source where you're already paying for water. So this is where the waste loops have the biggest impact. Is number one, you're paying to get it in society today. You're paying to get it to your house, then you're paying to use it, and then you're paying to throw it away. So what if you didn't need to pay to use it anymore? Let's say we caught all of our water on the roof And here in Trenton, we'll use that as an example. I got a 20,000 square foot roof space and or property section, and I don't remember exactly what all the math was. It's been a minute since I looked at it all, but I have upwards of 100,000 gallons a year of rain catchment potential on the roof of the shop in Trenton at the hub. So if we're able to catch all of that, 100,000 gallons a year on rain catch, that's phenomenal. We plumb all of that into a cistern and underground rain tanks because it has to be designed that way, so that we have multi-function area, multiple functions per area, because we're a commercial plot. It's not like a large agricultural zone. I'm not in the county. It's not my backyard, that kind of stuff for that hub. And so we need to stack it really, really well. So most things are going to be underground, and then we're going to go do some more stuff on top of that. So if we say all that water is being accumulated underground, then we can use that as the primary water source, and we use that out throughout the property. It flushes the toilets, it goes into the sink, it helps wash the vegetables, it's in the garden hose. Like, all these things can now come from the primary system in the underground cistern. Now that underground cistern can go a little bit further in its cycle now, and it's going to go become the gray water and the black water. So I've just eliminated all the input with that one idea of just catching the rain. And there's other ideas and ways you can do things, but just let's stick with this for simplicity. We caught the rain, now it serves all the water needs in the house. So now we have black water and gray water coming from rain, and we've got filtration systems where needed for drinking and all that stuff, right? So now we're looking at this export, and it's going in both directions, black water, gray water, and then we have the black water becoming fertility in one area, and being going through biodigesters and different solutions for that. And then we have on this side, we have methane gas, methane gas production. On this side, we have passive watering systems, so we don't need irrigation. We're growing food with gray water. We're fertilizing it with the outputs of our black water. So now we have fertilizer and irrigation coming from that passive rain system. There's no expenses in this cycle. Maybe the development, obviously it's expensive right up front, and the design and the actual bringing it to fruition, but once it's there, that's a passive operation. So this passive cycle here is now creating fertility and water in whatever climate I'm in. Could be desert, could be a desert would be a little bit trickier. You'd probably need a well instead of rain catch. Where I'm at, it's rain catch. But it could be whatever climate that we're designing for. Okay. So now once we got that fertility and the water coming out into the garden, let's say that the garden now, or the food forest, or the orchard, or the vineyard, or even our animal troughs are being watered by that gray water that's been purified through biodynamic systems and maybe modern technology as well, before we then get it to that point. And then we give it to the ecosystem around us again. By the time that gray water leaves the property, it is only leaving it because of rain, because it had an overflow. It would not leave the property or be allowed to leave the property without maximizing its use in every potential zone, right? Whether that's the animal troughs, whether that's the swale systems, whether that's the herb garden, the pollinator garden, a bee bath, whatever you want to call it. All the different areas that we could use water around the property can be cycled through with the gray water. And then by the time it reaches halfway through the property, it's probably used up, because gray water's not coming out that fast. You are getting showers and baths and things like that, and you get influxes of it, but for the most part, it can be used up pretty good before it exits the property, if it ever does. Especially when we're talking about rural zones, it generally never does. So now let's go talk about the next section here. So now you have complete passive irrigation to that point. You have passive income of water, and you have passive fertility in black water. Now we have all this organic matter that we're doing. And in modern society, we've got plastic, metal, we've got the food scraps themselves, of course. We've got all kinds of different weird materials like my kids' cars and the metal between the wheels on their Hot Wheel, and just lots of weird little components in all the stuff we're throwing away. You know, you buy something from the grocery store and it comes in a tin can, or you get a drink and it's glass, and so you've got tons and tons of just glass bottles going into the trash, and you've got your water bottles you're trying to like squish so get the air out of them, and you got to jam everything into the garbage can, and it can just become a real nuisance to even begin to think about separating all of that. So in the home, right inside the house, all of society that I grew up in a very normal way, right? Permaculture was not my way of living for quite some time. I grew up in a very normal household where we had one garbage can. We didn't recycle very much, if anything at all, and it was like enough work for us just to figure out how to function, let alone to get the time and the education to look at the world around us and try and maximize every single thing that we did. And you know, my parents are amazing. They did things with herbs. My dad tilled gardens. We had a little 3-acre farm. Like, we did all the things that we could possibly do at the level that they raised me at, and it was phenomenal. I loved my life. But what was really interesting now is looking back in retrospect is I realized where all the waste loops were. I realized where all the inputs of energy were going, where there wasn't enough time freedom or energy freedom or surplus production. And so there was all this slavery. Really, it was slavery. You look at the world around you and you wake up, you go to bed, or you wake up, you go to work, you go home, you go to bed. That's it. That's slavery, my friend. You are not living. You are not alive. You are functioning to perpetuate the wheel of society, and that's it. Your passions, your purpose for this planet, all the things that God gave you as gifts woven into your soul and capability are not being expressed in that cycle. Yes, it is paying the bills, but there's more. So I'll just end that rant right there for another day, but just know that there's more. And so looking at now the waste cycles when we're inside the house, let's say instead of one garbage can where everything goes, and then you wheel it, you take that outside and you put your bags in the big bin, and the big garbage trash truck comes over and takes your big bin, and then they haul it off and they take it to the landfill, they dump it in the trash facility, and then big tractors running on diesel push it into a big old track back into the like Conex box on the back of his diesel, a big semi truck, and then they haul it off to the landfill, and the landfill dumps that out into the ground, and then more big tractors turn it into the soil, and they lift and dig, and then they press it back, compacting all of it. There's all kinds of different garbage in there, all kinds of different material. Every material that you could imagine is in that heaping mound, and they just bury it. They keep going and compacting it and pushing it and compacting it until the big bulldozers can't push it back anymore. So then they finally get the soil that they use to dig the hole, and they bury it, and they bury it again, and they just keep pushing it back until that hole is filled. And then they go dig another one, and they start again. And so over time, there's massive mounds of trash, huge, heaping, massive mounds of trash of all different types under the ground in huge quadrants, and we're talking miles. So that's not sustainable. So what can we do? How does that, there's a property for sale out in Trenton that it's beautiful property. It's all grass fields, it's got a big old shop on it, surrounded by trees and a main highway access here. It'd be great for a food forest or an orchard, but it was an old landfill, so underneath it was littered with massive mounds of trash. So that's not sustainable. We cannot just bury our garbage. You cannot just go to your ditch and throw all your concrete and your rebar and all of your glass bottles and trash into the hole and bury it and walk away. How many years are you going to do that? How many generations are you going to do that? I'm finding that on my properties and on my clients' properties from people who lived 100 years ago. There's still garbage, glass bottles and all these things just in the ditches. You can't do that, all right? We got to get away from that. It is not only bad for sustainability and just eventually we're going to run out of space. The ability for us to use that space now for anything else has been completely compromised. You have so much work and labor to do to regenerate that space and to try to figure out what to do with all of that. So just don't do that anymore. Just don't do that. It is better to separate everything so that before it gets to where the mainstream society is going to handle the waste loop for you and the big trash trucks and all this other stuff, it can at least go into recyclable compartments so that you're not ending up down the road, say for example, finding a bunch of glass bottles that could have been melted down or crushed into a dust, or you're not going to come across a huge stick of rebar coming out of the back 20 of your field because somebody decided to bury half their house. Come on, guys. That drives me nuts. And these are real things that I come across all the time. This is not just theory. I see this with my own eyes all over the Midwest, and it drives me crazy. So there's nothing like trying to dig a hole in a garden, and all of a sudden you got a bunch of rebar coming out of the ground, and you're like, what? There's a whole foundation under there with glass windows, and yeah, people just bury stuff out here. It drives me crazy. All right, so off the tangent on that one here. In the house, if you had 4 garbage bags, okay, or four trash bins, instead of just the one you keep under your counter, which everybody throws all the different types in, start off first, number 1, with a compost bin. A compost bucket, a trash can with a bag, whatever you want to utilize that's really convenient and normal for you, which would probably be just your regular garbage can with a bag in it for now, and a lid, because that's food waste. Just set that in an area of your kitchen where you're making food so that it's convenient for you to just pick up the orange peels and drop them in that bucket. It's the exact same thing you're doing to the other garbage can, only this time it's a green one or the blue garbage can, right? Whatever. And just make that slight change. And so instead of putting it in the black bin with all the other cans, all the other material, you're getting it in the food scraps. When that is full, all of your compostable materials, and can be cardboard, can be things like your paper plates, can be stuff that you may not realize is compostable right away, but you'll learn, not just food, right? Fills up that can. All you do is take the bag out, and just like you would as if you're going to go to the big garbage can at the street, but instead of putting it in the street, you're going to go dump it in your next compost section, which is going to be just something simple like 3 or 6 pallets, making a bin that you can dump into the one side, and then every so often flip back and forth between the 2 sides. That's all you got to do. Once a week, once every 2 weeks, heck, don't even touch it until it's full, and then just go out there and turn it like crazy. Whatever is convenient for you. And you're not going to be perfect at composting right away. You're not going to have the time and commitment to, and you're going to get stuck in overwhelm if you're coming from the city and you're trying to figure this out for the first time, and you're like, hey, I can do this because YouTube is amazing, and you can absolutely do it, and you keep that passion and that momentum, and you will absolutely do it. But you're gonna need to figure out the self-discipline part and the paradigm shift part. You're gonna have to break all the old neural pathways and start new patterns. Instead of waking up and going to work and going home and eating and going to sleep, you're gonna be waking up and milking the cow and going to the shed and like all these other things before you even get to go to work. And so there's a whole other cycle of life that you're gonna have to rebuild in your brain. So don't overwhelm yourself, because as easy as these tasks might be, the pattern change and psychology behind developing and releasing old and new neural pathways is a lot for anybody. Even doing something as simple as trying to drink water in the morning as soon as you get out of bed can push people like crazy. So give yourself some patience, give yourself simplicity, make it easy. Put the bin right where you're cooking, and then take that bag right out on your way to where the original trash bag is. Put the garbage, the compost. So you're not even going on a different route. You're not even going on an unfamiliar path to try to compost stuff. Your garden can be right there too, where it's in a main pathway, so that you're integrating your trash cycle loop and your food production loop, and that's going back into the house and the chicken coop and all those things, all in an easy path. This is part of permaculture, about stacking functions and eliminating all of these distractions and separations. We're integrating instead of segregating. So now you've got your compost outside, and you're turning that, and that's going to turn into compost. Well, that's going to go back into the garden. That compost in the garden or the chicken coop is both going to be fertility for the food production on your property. Now that food production is going to go where? Back in your garden. So that's going to go into the house. You're going to make more, and then it's going to go back into the trash loop. So your nutrient cycle is closed too. You're no longer pulling all that nutrients out of your garden, going and putting it into your house, and then throwing it off the property. So you're stripping your land of nutrients. When you do this and you close this cycle, your fertility on your land will double. It'll just massively explode because the nutrients are staying there. The nutrients don't get pulled away from your landscape. They're staying there, and they're even more is being added in oftentimes. And so that is one of the most productive things that you can do on your homestead as far as self-sufficiency goes, what I've described to you so far. The other 3 cans, one of them is going to be your recyclable money producing metals. Think about an aluminum bin, for example. I store aluminum. When I find aluminum or copper, I will separate the two in a different bin. I have a big green tub, and I just stuff it in there. I'll come across random bits and pieces of copper, and like I did construction and roofing, and so sometimes we'd pull off big aluminum roofing panels or interior design stuff that was aluminum, and all of that recycles for a lot of money. It's actually good money. Sometimes at the end of a job, I'd walk away with $800 to $1,200 in nothing but recycled metal. And I would just drive it to the recycle place and drop it off, and they'd give me an $800 check. So, I mean, that to me is free money. You're going to throw it away. So if you're in your house and you're a soda buyer, that's money. If you're eating out of soda cans, aluminum cans, aluminum anything, then that's money, and you're just wasting it if you're throwing it away. So separate the metals and call it chore money if it's something simple. If you're not doing major projects where you have a lot of it, and it's just like soda cans, call it chore money. You can give it to the kids' savings. Add it to your homestead project fund. Add it to your family vacation road trip fund, like whatever. But utilize that resource. You're wasting money. Okay. The same thing for copper. I don't do a lot of steel, but steel is recyclable as well, and you'll find it in abundance. What I end up doing with steel and like bigger appliances or anything like that is actually call the local guys, because there's always somebody around that's collecting trash on a big trailer, and then he goes and does it. But he goes to multiple homes and multiple homesteads to gather all that up. And so it's kind of his income source. And so I leave all the steel and the things that are a lot less immediately valuable for him to recycle in bulk with all the other pickups that they get. And you can just let it on the side of the road and post it on Facebook Marketplace and be like, hey, free scrap metal, and they'll come get it. Or just put a sign out with scrap metal. Somebody will see it. So that's the next one, okay? So you've got your compost bin, you've got your metal bin, and then your third one is going to be the glass and the less conventionally recyclable materials that you're like, I don't really know what to do with this. Most people don't know how to recycle glass or what to do with glass. You can reuse the bottles yourself, which I do a lot of, and it drives my wife crazy because I have kombucha bottles all over the place. But they're great. You just steam them and strip all the labels off, and then reuse those glass bottles. That's why buy cups, why buy bottles when you can buy the lids for all of those, get new lids and bottle your own stuff and then store it in mass in your food storage room. So why buy anything? And they're thick. You drop them on I drop them on concrete sometimes 4 feet off the ground, and they just bounce. So there's a lot of glass bottles that are really, really good to repurpose and reuse and recycle. If you don't know what you're going to do with it, or it's a broken jar or something like that, whatever, it all goes in that miscellaneous bin. That miscellaneous bin is all that you should be giving to the guy that's coming to pick up your trash. And you will find that if you separate the metal and you separate all of your compostable scraps, that miscellaneous bin is like 1 bag a month. It's very, very small. And then you're going to go an extra level and and skip over the miscellaneous bin and get yourself the fourth bin. The fourth bin is going to be all the burnable scraps. Now, it is better for you to burn all of your scraps that are burnable than it is to give it to the guy that's going to come and take it off your property, because you're paying the guy to come and take it off your property, and especially if you're rural, you don't really want to do that. For me, that's a $68 to $87 bill a month just to have them come out and grab it, and they do it once a month at that rate. I have to pay more if I want them to come out more. I even got that same number, that quote, from In Town up in Trenton, Missouri, just to have them come put a dumpster on the back of the shop. And so it can go as high as $120 out there. So that's In Town. That's crazy. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay that. So what we can do is we can create a rocket mass heater that can take all of that burnable material, and as that what a rocket mass heater does, or a rocket stove, is it goes through several chambers and it generates ambient heat. That ambient heat, that thermal mass of the heater compartments and the clay and the cob and all the material that's around that is not only exchanging the heat from the main compartment as that smoke goes through all the chambers, but it's actually increasing the degradation of the smoke. All that material that's inside that plume of smoke that you're actually seeing is still burnable carbon, burnable material. All of that's going up through these different chambers. By the time it comes out the other end, there should be no smoke at all. It should be completely burned off. That's maximum fuel use. You're getting a maximum benefit out of all the fuel material you're putting in there. If you build it correctly, then the heat in the central chamber will do the initial work, and all the separate chambers after that will burn off the rest. By the time it gets out the flue, there is no more smoke coming out of it. It's just a warm air. And in the process, all that ambient heat that was caught on, let's say it's a rocket mass heater bench, that bench can actually be in your greenhouse. So now all that burnable material you're using outside in your greenhouse in the winter, or in a main burn designed something else, right? Some other way of utilizing it outside of the greenhouse in the summer, you can actually now heat up your greenhouse in the winter with all the scrap coming out of your house. So now you have less energy bills, and you have a smaller solar energy system to keep up with the heat demands of a passive off-grid greenhouse. So now you have another use of another waste that is ending its cycle, ending its life cycle on your land. Okay, so now that's black water, gray water, and wastewater. Or I mean, black water, gray water, and your trash cycle. Okay, so all of this stuff here is massive benefits on a homestead, and all I did was reroute. I just put a little spider leg out to different directions here for each waste cycle. That's it. All of that starts in your house. We didn't even talk about what's going on with the fuel systems out on the acreage. We didn't talk about ways that the animals can integrate all of their plant and vegetation systems. We didn't talk about how to repurpose and reuse different boundaries lines around the property, different sinks, ponds. We didn't get really into what a swale can do for your orchard. We didn't talk about the food production. We didn't talk about the sufficiency of a rain catch system and its distribution across all the different shelters on your property. We didn't talk about the different types of animals and animal husbandry methods that can then integrate into all of those things as well. We didn't talk about stacking functions like your chickens in your garden, your ducks and slugs in your orchards. We didn't talk about any of that. And we just maximized several components of your homestead just by changing the waste, just by changing the waste cycle. So I want you to take note of this. Whatever, go back to the beginning of this video, take note of whatever resonated with you and do it. Don't get into analysis paralysis of all the other things that you can do. Start with one waste system and do it. If you can manage that one waste system, then all the other facets of your property will start to benefit while you're working on the next one. Do it one at a time. For me, what I like to see people do, and what I would consult with you to do if I were standing on your property, is start with rain catch. The reason for that is, first, it's really simple. First, most impactful thing to help break you out of the already mundane cycles is to get immediately into surplus production and consumption reduction. Those two things will have a huge impact on your budget, a huge impact on your family's time and schedule, a huge impact on your movement and all the responsibilities that you have. Reduce the amount of expenses that you have and increase the amount of surplus that you have. Those two, that's priority one. So right off the bat, the easiest way to do that is rain catch. If you catch the rain, it reduces your water consumption, cheaper bill. If you're emergency preparedness minded, you're already got water storage already, but it's just stagnant water, so you can cycle that with rain. And then you have the emergency preparedness of, should your municipality ever turn off the water, or an earthquake or something break the line, then now you have a passive water supply system. So start there for your family's safety, long-term, and emergency preparedness mindsets. And then start there for your family's budget and your financial stability capabilities. And then start there for the domino effect that it has on the rest of your property, being self-contained, so that you actually can produce these waste cycles from a fresh system and then slowly integrate it into all of your existing systems. The United States operates on a high pressure water system. All of our grids, all of our pump systems, all of our deep wells, all of our municipalities, it's high pressure systems. And so it's really hard to do that at home. And so it's a little bit of a different mindset, and you need different materials when you're doing something like rain catch, because even our toilets, for example, operate on high pressure systems, that water pressure coming into the fill the tank in the back. Low pressure systems are available all over, but the standard material in your new construction home does not have those materials. It's built for high pressure, which is fine. You can make it work, and that's not a huge gap, but it will change the way that, say, even your toilet fills when you're just gravity feeding water into a toilet. So there are ways that you can pump it in. There are little stations that you can develop where water holds here for a minute, and then their pump, when it's activated on the switch, throws it out to the next system. Or if you're really at a good slope on your land, by the time your water here gravity feeds to your house here, there is pressure. So there's all kinds of different ways to do it. Every situation is a little bit unique, but I advise that you start with the rain catch system. And then, of course, I went through this whole bit here just to help you understand the lens to come from, but obviously there's a lot to it. Don't get into analysis paralysis. Start simple, rain catch, and then think about your waste cycles. And you can start black water first, gray water, and then, if you've got your septic system, you're pretty well tied into a lot of the more sustainable black water systems already. So if you're not really looking at getting into the composting toilets and separating the solids and liquids, then just skip that and go straight into the gray water system. Repipe your gray water out the side of your house into a filtration system, a reed bed, something that you can do long term. Consider the freeze. If you're in an area like me where I'm at, a lot of this needs to happen underground or in a controlled environment before you put it outside, because it will freeze in the wintertime and your gray water will back up. So you've got to have some forethought on the seasons there. Then immediately get into the garbage cans. And if the gray water systems and the black water systems are too complex, and the rain catch system, you're like, I don't even know, piping and plumbing and all the different gutters and links and connections there, cistern tanks and expensive this and expensive that, whatever. Skip all that. Just get a different colored garbage can. Start with one different colored garbage can and just start separating your compost. Go straight to compost. If you're really worried about the expenses of your life, then I encourage you immediately to add the garbage can system we talked about and start looking at the waste that you're throwing away, and it will dramatically improve your family's finances. It has a domino effect. It's not like you're going to be making millions of dollars on waste, right? It's pennies. But it has a domino effect into everything else that you do, and it affects your mind. It affects the way that you think. It affects your neural pathways and your patterns and your habits. And it will start to trickle into the way that you live your life, the way that your kids live their life, and the way that you consume things. You will consume less over time. completely passively doing this, not intentionally trying to have an effect of any kind, but just separating your trash, causes it to be consciously on your mind, consciously aware of it, that the way that you consume changes, what you consume changes, what you start to buy starts to change, because you recognize where it's going to go in the waste cycle, and you prefer certain things over other things, and so you passively and almost subconsciously adapt. That's human nature, and it's incredible power of the brain. And so starting there is the easiest, most cost-effective way. If you've already got a lot of infrastructure and you're doing all those things, then what I would advise you to do, again, is the rain catch. If you're ready to rock and roll with rain catch. If you've already got the rain catch and you've already got the cisterns and you're already doing all that into your main house, and that's your primary water supply, or a well, or it's an addition or whatever, and let's say you've even already got a black water system and your septic systems, and now your gray water's maybe even already in, and you're already separating all of your garbage bins, and you're at this level already in this home that I've just described to you, then your next step from there is going to be to look at the property around you and all of your additional outbuildings and structures. Your chicken coop can do everything that your house does inside. Your garage and your workshop can do everything your house does. All of those different things can happen in their own capacities, but they all can do the same things. So just get a little bit creative with some of these other solutions and ideas and perspectives and ways of looking at things, and let me know if you need any help. Of course, we do consultancy. Of course, we can support you, whether me directly or any of our team or anybody really that we can refer you to and work with in the TIAG community, the Independent American Gardener community. The best way to get a hold of us and to get involved with all that is to go to join us in the actual real community and just post and reach out to me or to anybody else in there at TIAG, TIAG communities.org, or you can reach me personally, Jamin, at TIAG, TIAG, TIAGcommunities.org. Jamin at TIAGcommunities.org. Always go straight to my phone. I get a ding every time I get an email, so that's a fast way to get to me directly. Otherwise, comment down below and share with me some of your thoughts on this video and what you thought was the most impactful and biggest shift for you. This was a lot of information, and I want you to just pause for a minute if you made it this far and give yourself some credit, because not a lot of people will make it this far. That means you're serious about what you're doing. You're serious about who you're trying to become and the life you're trying to create. And that tells me right then and there, if you're watching this part of the video and you didn't skip to get here, that tells me that you're the kind of person that's actually going to achieve it. So take that seriously. I work with thousands of people. I hear thousands of people all the time. And I see professionals in different capacities and their stories as well. And I know the people who made it to this point are the ones that will do it. I'm not a huge fan of Steve Jobs, but he had a great quote. He said, "Those who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who will." So I'll leave you with that. Much love, everybody. Let me know if you need our support. We'll be there for you. Thanks.